My name is Ethan Walker, 32 years old, and I never thought my big promotion to senior project manager would end with my own sister drenched in bitterness. All those years of hard work at Armstrong Technologies finally paid off, but my family made sure I would remember that night for all the wrong reasons. The party at Riverside Lounge was supposed to be my moment of triumph. Instead, it became the night Jessica destroyed any illusion I had about our relationship. Before I tell you how my own sister tried to destroy the biggest moment of my career, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to support stories about setting boundaries when family becomes toxic. My journey at Armstrong Technologies began 8 years ago. Fresh out of college with a business degree, I landed an entry-level position as a project coordinator. The pay was modest, the hours were long, and the work was often tedious, but I saw potential for growth. Armstrong Technologies is one of the leading software development companies in the country, known for innovative solutions and competitive benefits. Getting your foot in the door there was considered a major accomplishment in itself. From day one, I put everything into my work. While other new hires would clock out at 5 on the dot, I would stay until 7 or 8, learning the systems, understanding the company culture, and building relationships with colleagues across departments. My supervisor at the time, Marcus, noticed my dedication and began assigning me more responsibility. By my second year, I was unofficially leading small projects despite my junior title. The path to my promotion wasn't easy or quick. I sacrificed countless weekends, canceled vacation plans when emergencies arose, and constantly pushed myself to exceed expectations. Each annual review brought incremental advances: project coordinator to project specialist, then to assistant project manager, and finally to project manager. Each step required proving myself all over again. Growing up with Jessica was complicated from the beginning. Being 3 years younger than me, she naturally received more attention from our parents, but what started as age-appropriate nurturing never evolved as we grew older. While most siblings eventually find an equal footing in the family, our dynamic remained permanently skewed. Our childhood home in suburban Pennsylvania was comfortable, but not lavish. Dad worked as an insurance adjuster, and Mom taught 4th grade at the local elementary school. They provided well for us, but extras required justification. Well, at least for me they did. I can still remember saving up for 6 months to buy a second-hand mountain bike when I was 14. My parents told me that if I wanted something beyond necessities, I needed to earn it. The lesson in financial responsibility seemed reasonable, and I took pride in finally making that purchase with my own money. 2 weeks later, Jessica mentioned she wanted a similar bike. The very next day, Dad came home with a brand new one for her. When I pointed out the obvious discrepancy in treatment, Mom said, "Your sister is more sensitive than you. She needs more encouragement." This pattern repeated throughout our school years. My straight A's were expected and briefly acknowledged. Jessica's occasional B+ was celebrated with dinner at her favorite restaurant. When I made the varsity basketball team after 3 years of dedicated practice, my parents attended one game the entire season. When Jessica joined the school play in a minor role, they attended every performance and brought flowers each night. College admissions provided another stark contrast. I researched scholarships, prepared applications, and secured enough financial aid to cover most of my tuition at a good state university. Jessica applied to just one school, a private college, with tuition nearly triple what mine cost. When she was accepted, our parents announced they had been saving a college fund. For her, not for us. For her. "Your sister isn't as academically inclined as you," Dad explained when I questioned this. "We knew you would figure it out on your own." Our father passed away from a sudden heart attack 5 years ago. His death affected us all deeply, but it seemed to hit Jessica particularly hard. She had always been his favorite, and losing him left her adrift. Mom became even more protective of Jessica, rushing to her aid for every minor setback, while expecting me to handle my grief independently. Despite all this, I tried to maintain a cordial relationship with my family. I would visit Mom every other Sunday for dinner, call Jessica on her birthday, and join family gatherings for major holidays. I kept conversations light, avoiding topics that might trigger comparisons or resentment. When Jessica dropped out of college in her final year to find herself, I said nothing. When she cycled through 5 different jobs in 2 years, because none were fulfilling enough, I kept my opinions to myself. The warning signs of Jessica's resentment toward my career became more pronounced over the past year. At Christmas dinner, she interrupted my brief mention of a successful project with a 20-minute monologue about how corporate jobs crush creativity. When I purchased my first home, a modest 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood, she commented that materialistic people use possessions to fill the void in their souls. Each achievement in my life seemed to trigger a defensive reaction from her. Mom always enabled this behavior. Your sister expresses herself passionately, she would say. Or, Jessica is an artistic spirit. She sees the world differently than most people. These excuses became so predictable, I could mouth the words along with her. Despite these dynamics, when the time came to plan my promotion celebration, I wanted to include my family. Perhaps naively, I hoped that this significant milestone might finally earn their genuine support. My girlfriend Amanda, who had witnessed numerous disappointing interactions with my family, questioned this decision. They have never celebrated your successes before, she pointed out as we discussed the guest list in my living room. Why would this time be different? They are still my family, I replied, though my confidence wavered. Maybe seeing all my colleagues and friends supporting me will help them understand how important this is. Amanda squeezed my hand sympathetically, but didn't press further. Having grown up in a supportive family herself, she struggled to understand my complicated relationship with mine. Nevertheless, she respected my choice and promised to help make the event special, regardless of how my family behaved. The news of my promotion came on a Tuesday afternoon. Richard Thompson, the director of project management, called me into his glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline. I assumed we would be discussing the quarterly reports I had submitted the previous day. Ethan, take a seat, Richard said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His expression revealed nothing, maintaining the professional poker face he was known for throughout the company. Your work on the Horizon initiative has been exceptional. He began referencing the 6-month project I had recently completed ahead of schedule and under budget. The client specifically mentioned your leadership in their feedback. Thank you, sir. It was a team effort, I responded, following the humble approach that had served me well over the years. Richard smiled slightly. That is precisely why we have decided to promote you to senior project manager. The significance of this promotion cannot be overstated. Senior project manager at Armstrong Technologies was a prestigious position that typically required at least 12 years at the company. I had achieved it in 8. The role came with a 30% salary increase, a team of project managers reporting directly to me, and involvement in strategic company decisions. Only 5 other employees held this title, in a company of over 300 people. This promotion also means you will be heading our new flagship project with Novatech, Richard continued. It is a multi-million-dollar initiative that will define our company's direction for the next several years. My heart raced as I maintained my composure. The Novatech project was the most significant contract Armstrong had secured in a decade. Being selected to lead it was both an honor and a massive responsibility. After discussing the details of my new role and signing the necessary paperwork, I left Richard's office feeling like I was floating. The first person I called was Amanda. I got it, I exclaimed when she answered. Her excited scream made me hold the phone away from my ear. I knew you would. Oh my God, Ethan, I am so proud of you. We need to celebrate, I said, still processing the news myself. Absolutely. This calls for something special, Amanda agreed. What about Riverside Lounge? That upscale place downtown, with the terrace overlooking the river. Riverside Lounge was one of the most elegant venues in the city, known for hosting corporate events and upscale celebrations. The suggestion felt appropriate for the significance of the occasion. That sounds perfect, I replied. Let us see if they have availability for this Saturday. Amanda, whose work as an event coordinator gave her valuable connections, secured the venue with remarkable speed. We decided on a cocktail party format with heavy appetizers, an open bar for the first 2 hours, and a private section of the terrace reserved for our group. The guest list included about 30 people, colleagues from work, friends, who had supported my career journey, and of course my family. As the day approached, Amanda helped coordinate the details. She arranged for tasteful decorations in blue and silver, the Armstrong Company colors, and ordered a custom cake with the company logo and a congratulatory message. My boss Richard agreed to say a few words, which would give the event an official feel while acknowledging the company's recognition of my achievement. The question of inviting my family lingered in my mind. Part of me feared they would somehow diminish this accomplishment, as they had with others in the past. Yet another part hoped that perhaps the formal nature of the event and the presence of my colleagues might inspire them to offer genuine support just this once. I think I should call them, I told Amanda 3 days before the party. We were sitting on my couch finalizing the seating arrangement on her tablet. She set the tablet down and gave me her full attention. If that is what you want to do, I support you. Just remember that this is your night, and you deserve to enjoy it without stress. I nodded and picked up my phone, dialing my mother's number first. She answered on the 4th ring. Ethan, is everything okay? Her immediate assumption that I only called with problems stung a little. Everything is great, actually. I got promoted to senior project manager, I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. Oh, that is nice, dear, she responded, with the same tone she might use to acknowledge that I had picked up milk from the store. Does that mean more money? I pushed aside my disappointment at her reaction. Yes, it is a significant increase. I will also be leading the company's biggest new project. Well, good for you, she said. Jessica just started a pottery class, you know. The instructor says she has natural talent. I took a deep breath before continuing. I am having a celebration this Saturday at Riverside Lounge. I would love if you and Jessica could come. The pause that followed lasted just long enough to be noticeable. That fancy place downtown, is the company paying for that? No, Amanda and I are hosting it ourselves. It is an important milestone. Another pause. What time Jessica has her pottery class until 4? I explained the details, emphasizing that the formal part of the evening, including my boss's speech, would happen around 6:30. Mom reluctantly agreed they would try to make it, though her tone suggested I was imposing rather than extending an invitation to share in my success. The call with Jessica went similarly, though with an added layer of passive aggression. So, corporate America has given you another gold star, she remarked, after I shared my news. I guess that means even more hours chained to your desk. The position actually offers better work-life balance, I explained, though I knew she wasn't really interested. The party is this Saturday at 6. It would mean a lot if you could come. I had plans to meet some friends from my pottery class, she said, predictably following Mom's earlier mention of this new hobby. But I guess I could stop by for a little while. Mom says I have to anyway. Despite these lukewarm responses, I held on to hope that seeing the respect my colleagues had for me might help my family understand the significance of this achievement. Maybe, just maybe, they would finally be proud of me. The day before the party, Amanda and I visited Riverside Lounge to check the setup. The venue was even more impressive than I remembered from previous visits. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the river and city skyline. Modern furnishings in rich blues and warm woods created an atmosphere that was simultaneously sophisticated and welcoming. Tomorrow is going to be amazing, Amanda assured me, squeezing my hand as we looked around the space. You have worked so hard for this. I smiled at her, grateful for her unwavering support. Thank you for everything you have done to make this special. That night I had trouble sleeping. My mind kept cycling between excitement about the recognition of my professional achievement and anxiety about my family's attendance. Amanda's gentle snoring beside me was oddly comforting as I stared at the ceiling, telling myself that regardless of how my family behaved, this was still my moment to celebrate. Saturday evening arrived with perfect weather for a celebration. Amanda and I reached Riverside Lounge an hour early to oversee the final preparations. The staff had transformed the already elegant space into something truly spectacular. Subtle uplighting cast a warm glow throughout the room. Arrangements of white lilies and blue hydrangeas adorned each table. A professionally printed banner congratulating me on my promotion hung above the small stage area where speeches would be given. The bartenders were setting up 2 stations with top-shelf liquors and a selection of wines. The catering team arranged platters of gourmet appetizers, seared tuna on wonton crisps, miniature beef, Wellington bites, truffle-infused mushroom tartlets, and various other delicacies. A 3-tiered display of desserts, centered around the custom cake, completed the impressive spread. "This looks incredible," I told Amanda, taking in the scene with a mixture of excitement and disbelief that this was all for me. She beamed with pride. "You deserve every bit of this. Tonight is going to be perfect." Guests began arriving promptly at 6. My colleague Marcus, who had mentored me during my early days at Armstrong, was among the first to appear with his wife Jennifer. "There he is," Marcus exclaimed, pulling me into a bear hug. "Senior Project Manager Ethan Walker. I always knew you would go far, but even I am impressed with how quickly you have climbed the ladder." His genuine enthusiasm set the tone for the arrivals that followed. My team members arrived in a group, presenting me with a gift bag containing an expensive fountain pen engraved with my name and new title. Colleagues from other departments, some I had collaborated with, and others I merely knew in passing, all offered sincere congratulations. Richard Thompson arrived precisely at 6:15, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit that exuded authority without being ostentatious. He shook my hand firmly and introduced his wife Diane. "Ethan, we are truly fortunate to have you on our leadership team," he said, his public endorsement carrying significant weight among the gathered employees. "Your promotion was unanimously approved by the executive committee, which rarely happens." By 6:30, the venue was filled with approximately 25 guests, all mingling, enjoying drinks, and sampling the appetizers. The atmosphere buzzed with positive energy and professional camaraderie. Several people had asked about my family, and I found myself checking my phone repeatedly for messages. At 6:20, my mother finally texted, running late. "Jessica had to change clothes. We'll be there soon." I tried not to let their tardiness dampen my spirits as I continued greeting guests and accepting congratulations. Amanda stayed close by, seamlessly filling in any conversational gaps and making sure everyone had drinks and food. Her social grace helped ease my growing anxiety about my family's absence. At 6:45, Richard tapped a glass to gain everyone's attention, preparing to give his speech, despite my family not yet arriving. Just as he began to speak, movement at the entrance caught my eye. My mother and Jessica had finally arrived, a full 45 minutes late. Their entrance created an immediate disruption as heads turned toward the newcomers. My mother wore a simple navy dress that was appropriate for the occasion, if a bit dated. Jessica, however, had chosen an outfit more suited to a nightclub than a professional celebration. A sparkly low-cut silver dress that was at least 2 sizes too small, paired with platform heels that made her tower over our mother. I excused myself from Richard's side and quickly made my way across the room to greet them, hoping to minimize the interruption to his speech. As I approached, I noticed Jessica surveying the room with a critical expression, her eyes lingering on the open bar. "Mom, Jessica, I am so glad you could make it," I said, giving my mother a brief hug. Jessica turned her cheek when I attempted to embrace her. "This place is really something," Mom commented, her tone suggesting she found it pretentious rather than impressive. "Must have cost a fortune." "It is a special occasion," I replied simply. "Come meet Amanda and some of my colleagues." "I need a drink first," Jessica announced, already moving toward the bar without waiting for a response. I watched her go, then turned back to my mother with a forced smile. "Let me introduce you to some people." I guided Mom toward Amanda, who was engaged in conversation with a few of my team members. She immediately extended her hand with a warm smile. "Mrs. Walker, I am so happy to finally meet you. Ethan has told me so much about you." My mother accepted the handshake with considerably less enthusiasm. "Has he? Well, that is nice. This is quite the fancy party you two have put together." "Ethan deserves to be celebrated," Amanda replied smoothly. "His promotion is a remarkable achievement." Mom made a non-committal noise before changing the subject. "So, you work in event planning. That must be interesting." I introduced her to several colleagues, each interaction following a similar pattern. Warm greetings from my coworkers met with tepid responses from my mother. She answered questions about herself at length, but showed minimal interest in learning about the people important to my professional life. Meanwhile, Jessica had positioned herself permanently at the bar, downing drinks at an alarming rate. Within 30 minutes of arriving, she was already on her third martini, growing louder with each one. I kept glancing in her direction, my stomach tightening with anxiety, as I recognized the warning signs of her impending bad behavior. Amanda noticed my distraction and squeezed my arm gently. "Everything okay?" "Jessica is drinking heavily," I murmured. "That never ends well." "Want me to try talking to her?" Amanda offered. Before I could respond, Jessica appeared beside us, martini in hand, and a slight sway in her stance. She looked Amanda up and down, with barely concealed disdain. "So you are the girlfriend," she stated flatly. "Ethan says you are some kind of party planner." Event coordinator Amanda corrected with unwavering politeness. "It is lovely to meet you, Jessica. Ethan has told me what a creative person you are." Jessica snorted. "Creative, but broke, right? Not all of us sell our souls to corporations for a fancy title." I intervened quickly. "Jessica, have you tried any of the food? The caterers did an amazing job." "Not hungry," she replied, taking another large sip of her drink. "Just making the obligatory appearance at Big Brother's self-congratulatory party." The comment stung, but I maintained my composure as Richard approached our small group. He extended his hand to my mother and sister with a professional smile. "You must be Ethan's family. I am Richard Thompson, Director of Project Management at Armstrong. Your son is one of our most valuable team members." My mother shook his hand briefly. "We always knew he would do fine." The faint praise hung awkwardly in the air. Richard, ever the diplomat, continued, undeterred. "More than fine, Mrs. Walker. Ethan has accomplished in 8 years what most take 12 or more to achieve. You must be very proud." Jessica rolled her eyes so dramatically, I worried they might get stuck. My mother simply nodded without elaborating. Richard gave me a questioning look before tactfully steering the conversation toward the upcoming Novatech project, carefully avoiding any confidential details. As the evening progressed, I found myself constantly dividing my attention between engaging with appreciative colleagues and monitoring Jessica's deteriorating state. She had moved on to what appeared to be whiskey, her volume increasing with each drink. My mother did nothing to moderate her behavior, instead engaging in hushed conversations that ceased abruptly whenever I approached. The real trouble began when Jessica interrupted a conversation I was having with 2 important clients who had been invited because they would be working closely with me on the Novatech project. I was mid-sentence explaining my vision for the project timeline when Jessica inserted herself into our circle. "Are you guys the ones giving my brother all this money?" she asked loudly, her words slightly slurred. "You know he will probably work all night for you. No life outside the office, this one." The clients exchanged uncomfortable glances as I gently took Jessica's elbow. "Jessica, I would like to introduce you to someone else," I said quietly, attempting to guide her away. She yanked her arm free. "Do not manage me, Ethan. I am just trying to have a conversation." Perhaps later, I suggested maintaining a calm tone, despite my growing embarrassment. Mr. Dawson and Mr. Greenberg were just discussing some important aspects of the new project. "Oh, the precious project," Jessica mocked, making air quotes with her fingers. God forbid anyone interrupt the important business talk. My mother appeared at Jessica's side, but rather than addressing her inappropriate behavior, she defended it. "She is just trying to be part of your special night, Ethan. There is no need to be rude to her." The clients politely excused themselves, leaving me stunned at being cast as the villain in this scenario. Amanda, who had been watching from nearby, smoothly intercepted the clients, with questions about their families, giving me space to address my own. "Jessica, you are clearly upset," I said quietly. "Perhaps this is not the best environment for you right now." "Oh, I am upsetting your perfect image," she challenged, her voice carrying across nearby conversations. "Sorry, I am not fawning over your corporate accomplishments like everyone else here." She gestured wildly with her drink, some of it sloshing over the rim. "You know what the difference between us is, Ethan? You had everything handed to you. College support, natural talent, dad's attention. I have had to struggle for everything while you sailed through life, collecting gold stars." The irony of her statement was breathtaking given our actual childhood experiences. But this was neither the time nor place to correct her distorted narrative. Several of my colleagues were now openly staring, and I could see Richard observing the situation with concern from across the room. "Jessica, please lower your voice," I requested. "We can discuss this another time." "Of course," she sneered. "Another time." Always pushing me aside for something more important. My mother placed a hand on Jessica's shoulder. "Maybe we should get some fresh air, dear." For a moment I thought Jessica might agree, but instead she shrugged off our mother's hand and stormed back to the bar, demanding another drink from the increasingly uncomfortable bartender. I turned to my mother in disbelief. "She is making a scene at my professional event. Can you please do something?" "She is having a hard time lately," Mom replied defensively. "You know how sensitive she is. This party is probably overwhelming for her." "Then perhaps you should take her home," I suggested, as gently as possible. Mom's expression hardened. "She is your sister, Ethan. Family should come first, even with your big promotion." The conversation was clearly going nowhere productive. I excused myself to check on Amanda and the clients, trying to salvage what professional relationships I could, while my sister continued drinking, and my mother enabled her behavior. The disaster I had feared was unfolding before my eyes, and the worst was yet to come. As the evening progressed toward its planned highlight, the tension surrounding my family situation continued to build. Richard had scheduled his formal congratulatory speech for 7:30, which would be followed by a champagne toast and the cutting of the cake. These ceremonial moments were important in our company culture, signifying the official recognition of career advancement. While most guests remained unaware of the family drama simmering beneath the surface, those who had witnessed Jessica's earlier behavior gave her a wide berth. She had claimed a table near the bar, where she alternated between typing furiously on her phone and glaring in my direction whenever I was engaged in animated conversation with colleagues. Richard approached me while I was speaking with the technology team about the infrastructure requirements for the Novatech project. He smoothly integrated himself into the discussion before quietly suggesting we step aside for a moment. "Everything all right with your family?" he asked, once we were out of earshot. His tone was concerned rather than judgmental. "Just some typical family tension," I replied, attempting to downplay the situation. "My sister is going through a difficult time." Richard nodded, sympathetically. "Family dynamics can be complicated. We are still on track for the toast in 20 minutes. Will that work for everyone?" "Absolutely," I assured him silently, praying that Jessica would either calm down or leave before then. When I rejoined the main group, Amanda subtly guided me toward a quiet corner. "Your sister just cornered the VP of marketing and told him corporate hierarchies are tools of oppression," she informed me in a hushed voice. "I managed to extract him by claiming he was needed for a photo, but she is getting more confrontational with each drink." I ran a hand through my hair, struggling to maintain my professional composure. Maybe I should ask the bartenders to stop serving her. "I already did," Amanda admitted. 10 minutes ago. She went to the hotel bar next door and came back with that." She nodded toward the tumbler of amber liquid Jessica was now nursing. My mother sat beside Jessica, occasionally patting her hand, but making no effort to moderate her behavior or suggest they leave. When I approached their table, Jessica looked up with unfocused eyes. "Here comes the man of the hour," she announced loudly. "Too busy for his family as usual." "Jessica, I have been trying to include you all evening," I said quietly, taking the empty seat beside her. "But this is a professional event, and your behavior is becoming inappropriate." "Inappropriate," she repeated, her voice rising. "Sorry, I am not corporate robot material like you and your clone friends." "Mom," interjected Ethan, "your sister is just expressing herself. There is no need to criticize her. She is drunk at my work event, insulting my colleagues, and disrupting conversations," I pointed out, struggling to keep my frustration in check. "How would you have reacted if one of your student's siblings behaved this way at a school function?" Mom's expression hardened. "That is completely different. This is family." "Which is precisely why I expected some basic consideration," I replied. Before the conversation could deteriorate further, I noticed Richard moving toward the small stage area. "I need to go. The formal part of the evening is about to begin." As I stood to leave, Jessica grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, running away as usual when things get real. I gently but firmly removed her hand. "We can talk tomorrow when you are sober." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, I am making perfect sense right now. Maybe too much sense for you to handle." I rejoined Amanda near the stage, my heart pounding with a mixture of anger and anxiety. She gave my hand a reassuring squeeze as Richard tapped a knife against his champagne flute, gaining the attention of the room. The conversations quieted as guests turned toward the small stage. "Good evening, everyone." Richard began his voice, carrying authority without the need for a microphone. "Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate a significant milestone in Ethan Walker's career." From the corner of my eye, I could see Jessica whispering something to our mother, who nodded in agreement. The knot in my stomach tightened. Richard continued. 8 years ago, Ethan joined Armstrong Technologies as a project coordinator fresh out of college. I remember reviewing his application and being impressed by his clear ambition and attention to detail. Those qualities have defined his journey with our company. He went on to highlight several of my major accomplishments: the successful implementation of our new project management system, the Horizon initiative that came in under budget, and my consistently high client satisfaction ratings. With each achievement he mentioned, I noticed Jessica's expression growing darker. What makes Ethan exceptional is not just his technical expertise or organizational skills, Richard said, but his ability to bring people together. The teams he leads consistently report high morale and productivity because Ethan understands that our greatest resource is our people. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Several of my team members nodded enthusiastically. It is therefore my great pleasure to officially announce Ethan's promotion to Senior Project Manager, Richard declared. But I am even more excited to share that Ethan will be leading our new flagship project with Novatech, a $20 million initiative that will define Armstrong's direction for years to come. Applause erupted throughout the room. Amanda squeezed my hand again, beaming with pride. Only 2 people remained stone-faced, my mother and sister. "This project represents the largest contract in our company's history," Richard continued once the applause subsided. "The fact that our executive team unanimously selected Ethan to lead it speaks volumes about his capabilities and the trust he has earned." As Richard prepared to propose the toast, I noticed Jessica stand abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. My mother placed a hand on her arm, but rather than restraining her, she appeared to be encouraging her. Jessica shook off the contact and took a step toward the stage. Richard raised his glass. "Please join me in congratulating Ethan Walker on his well-deserved promotion and in wishing him success as he leads us into this exciting new chapter." To Ethan? The guests raised their glasses and echoed to Ethan. As I accepted the toast with a humble nod, Jessica moved decisively through the crowd, glass in hand. The collective attention of the room shifted from me to her as people stepped aside, sensing the determination in her approach. Richard paused, his expression shifting from celebration to concern. "You want to know who the real Ethan Walker is?" Jessica called out, her voice cutting through the momentary silence that had fallen over the room. My heart sank as I realized the disaster I had feared was unfolding. In that moment, watching my sister's face transform with rage, I knew we had crossed a point of no return in our relationship. "You want to know who the real Ethan Walker is?" Jessica repeated, her voice echoing through the suddenly silent room. Every head turned toward her glasses, still half raised from the interrupted toast. Richard Thompson stood frozen on the small stage, his professional composure momentarily shaken by this unexpected interruption. Amanda gripped my hand so tightly I could feel her nails digging into my palm. "The real Ethan," Jessica continued, swaying slightly as she addressed the room, "is the most selfish person I have ever known." A collective intake of breath swept through the crowd. Jessica took another step forward, her drink sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. "While you all praise him for his dedication to your precious company, did any of you know he missed our father's birthday dinner last year because of some project deadline?" Her accusation hung in the air, a partial truth twisted for maximum impact. I had missed that dinner because Jessica had changed the date at the last minute without telling me, then blamed me for not showing up. "Jessica, "This is not the time or place," I said quietly, trying to approach her. She backed away, pointing at me accusingly. "Do not try to silence me, Ethan. For once in your life, you are going to hear the truth about yourself in front of all these people who think you are so perfect." My mother remained seated, making no attempt to intervene. If anything, her expression suggested satisfaction at seeing my professional moment derailed. Jessica turned back to the stunned audience. "My brother has spent his entire life stepping on others to get ahead. He abandoned our family the minute he got his first paycheck, barely visiting, unless he could brag about his latest accomplishment." The unfairness of this accusation burned in my chest. I had financially supported both her and my mother for years, paying for everything from Jessica's failed business ventures to my mother's roof repair after a storm. While our father was dying, Jessica continued, her voice breaking for dramatic effect. Ethan was too busy climbing the corporate ladder to spend time with him. Then he had the audacity to show up at the funeral, acting like the grieving son. This particular lie struck like a physical blow. I had taken a leave of absence during our father's final months, spending more time at the hospital than Jessica or my mother. I had been the one to coordinate with hospice, manage his medications, and ensure his comfort in those final weeks. Amanda stepped forward. "Jessica, you are clearly upset. Perhaps we should continue this conversation privately." Jessica laughed bitterly. "Of course his girlfriend wants to shut me up. You probably believe all his lies too." She turned back to the crowd, who stood in uncomfortable silence. "Ethan Walker thinks he is better than everyone else. Better than his family, better than his friends from before he got this job, better than anyone who does not measure success in dollars and fancy titles." Richard finally recovered enough to attempt intervention. "I think we should take a brief intermission from the formal proceedings," he announced, gesturing to the waitstaff to circulate with more drinks and appetizers. But Jessica was not finished. She stepped directly in front of me, close enough that I could smell the alcohol on her breath. "You never deserved any of this," she hissed, gesturing around the elegant venue. "You were always the least special, least talented person in our family. Mom and Dad only pushed you to get a stable job because they knew you had no real gifts." The absurdity of this statement might have been laughable in another context. Jessica had bounced between half-completed degrees and abandoned hobbies for years, never committing to anything long enough to develop actual skill. "All these people," she continued, her voice rising again as she swept her arm toward my colleagues, "think you earned this through hard work and talent. But I know the truth. You are nothing but a brown-noser who got lucky. You have never had an original thought in your life." I remained silent, knowing from past experience that engaging would only escalate her behavior. My silence seemed to infuriate her further. "Say something," she demanded, her face flushed with anger. "Defend yourself. Or are you too cowardly to admit the truth in front of your precious work? Friends?" "Jessica, you are drunk and upset," I said calmly. "This is not helping either of us." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "Still playing the reasonable one, huh? Still acting superior?" She turned again to address the room at large. "Let me tell you all something about your wonderful new senior project manager. He let our mother struggle financially after Dad died while he bought himself a fancy car and house. He promised to help me start my business, but pulled the funding because it was not corporate enough for his taste." More lies. I had given Jessica $15,000 for her artisanal soap company, which had produced exactly 12 bars of soap before she abandoned it for pottery classes. The car she referred to was a 3-year-old Honda, hardly the luxury vehicle she implied. I could see confusion and discomfort on the faces of my colleagues. Those who knew me well looked skeptical of Jessica's claims, but others seemed unsure what to believe. The professional reputation I had carefully built over 8 years was being publicly attacked by my own sister. My mother finally stood and approached, but rather than restraining Jessica, she placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "Jessica has always been sensitive to injustice," she announced to the room, as if this explained and justified the outburst. Something inside me snapped at this display of unified front against me. "That is enough," I said firmly. "You have both made your feelings clear. I think it would be best if you left now." Jessica's face contorted with rage. kicking out your family, proving my point about what a selfish jerk you really are. I am asking you to leave because you are disrupting an event that is important to my career, I replied evenly. We can discuss your grievances another time in private. There is nothing to discuss, Jessica snarled. I have watched you get everything handed to you our entire lives while I struggled. Well, I am done pretending to be happy for you. She raised her nearly full glass. For a split second I thought she might throw it in my face. Instead, she did something even more dramatic. Screw you, Ethan, she screamed, her voice reaching a pitch that caused several people to wince. You are nothing. You have always been nothing. With that, she hurled her drink directly at my chest. The amber liquid soaked through my white shirt and navy suit jacket, the heavy tumbler bouncing off my chest before clattering to the floor. Gasps echoed throughout the room as Jessica stormed toward the exit. My mother gave me a look of pure disappointment, as if I had been the one to create this scene. Now look what you have done, she muttered before, hurrying after Jessica. The shocked silence that followed their departure was possibly the most uncomfortable moment of my professional life. Amanda quickly appeared at my side with a handful of cocktail napkins dabbing ineffectually at my soaked shirt. I am so sorry, I said to the room at large, my voice strained but steady. That was obviously not part of the planned entertainment. A few nervous laughs broke the tension. Richard stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. Family can be complicated, he said diplomatically. Now, where were we with that toast? His attempt to salvage the situation was admirable, but the damage had been done. Though many guests made a point of approaching me with words of support and understanding, the celebratory atmosphere had evaporated. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and abbreviated conversations. By 9:30, less than an hour after Jessica's outburst, most guests had made polite excuses to leave. What should have been a triumphant celebration of my career achievement had become an event people could not wait to escape. As the last guests departed, Amanda and I sat alone at a table surrounded by half-empty glasses and picked over appetizer platters. The Riverside Lounge staff discreetly began cleaning up around us, avoiding eye contact out of professional courtesy. I should have listened to you, I said, finally loosening my still damp tie. You warned me about inviting them. Amanda reached across the table to take my hand. You wanted to believe the best about your family. That is not a character flaw, Ethan. No, but it is definitely a mistake I will not be repeating. I replied, the weight of years of similar incidents, though none quite so public, pressing down on me. Little did I know that the evening's drama was far from over. My phone, which I had silenced during the event, showed 6 missed calls and 11 text messages from my mother when I finally checked it. The real confrontation was yet to come. Amanda and I left Riverside Lounge shortly after 10, thanking the staff for their professionalism, despite the uncomfortable situation. The drive home passed mostly in silence, both of us processing the evening's events. The whiskey Jessica had thrown still clung to my clothes, filling the car with its pungent aroma and serving as a persistent reminder of her outburst. Do you want to talk about it? Amanda asked gently, as we stopped at a red light. I stared out the window at the city lights. What is there to say? My sister publicly humiliated me in front of my boss, colleagues, and clients. My mother stood by and let it happen, then blamed me for it. It is the same dynamic that has played out my entire life, just on a larger stage this time. Your boss seemed understanding, Amanda offered. And most of your colleagues know you well enough not to take Jessica's accusations seriously. Maybe I conceded, but perception matters in business. People remember drama and gossip. This will be the story people tell about my promotion for years to come. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I ignored it, knowing it was likely another message from my mother. Since leaving the venue, she had called twice more and sent several additional texts, none of which I had read or answered. When we arrived home, I headed straight for the shower, desperate to wash away the stickiness of spilled whiskey and the metaphorical stain of public humiliation. The hot water provided temporary relief, but the knot of anger and hurt in my chest remained firmly in place. Wrapped in a bathrobe, I finally checked my phone while Amanda made us tea in the kitchen. The messages from my mother followed a predictable pattern of escalating guilt and manipulation. Jessica is crying. I hope you are happy. Call me immediately. We need to discuss your behavior. Your sister is going through a difficult time. You know how sensitive she is. Family should support each other. I raised you better than this. Jessica was just expressing her feelings. You always invalidate her emotions. The final message sent just 20 minutes ago read, "We are waiting for your apology. Call tonight." I stared at the phone in disbelief. They expected me to apologize. After Jessica had disrupted my professional event, publicly insulted me, thrown a drink at me, and stormed out. After my mother had enabled and supported this behavior, the sheer audacity was breathtaking. Amanda entered the bedroom with 2 mugs of chamomile tea, immediately noticing my expression. "What is it?" "They want me to apologize," I said, still staring at the phone. Apparently I am the villain in this story. She set the mugs down on the nightstand and sat beside me on the bed. "That is ridiculous. What exactly are you supposed to be apologizing for?" "Existing, apparently. Succeeding. Not letting Jessica be the center of attention for one night of my life." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Amanda remained silent, giving me space to process my thoughts. After several minutes, I made a decision. I need to end this cycle, tonight. It was nearly midnight when I finally called my mother. Despite the late hour, she answered on the first ring, suggesting she had been waiting by the phone. Finally, she said by way of greeting, "Your sister is absolutely devastated by how you treated her." I took a deep breath, determined to remain calm. Mom Jessica showed up late to my promotion celebration, got drunk, insulted me, and my colleagues screamed obscenities, threw a drink at me, and stormed out. Exactly what part of my behavior requires an apology? "You provoked her." My mother replied without hesitation. "Flaunting your success when you know how difficult things have been for her lately." "Celebrating a major career achievement is not flaunting," I countered. "And what exactly has been so difficult for Jessica? The pottery class you mentioned seems to be going well, according to your earlier comments." "She broke up with Tyler last month," Mom said, as if this explained everything. "And her roommate is moving out, so she is worried about making rent. She is under tremendous stress." I bit back the obvious response that Jessica's perpetual financial instability was largely self-inflicted. "That is unfortunate, but it does not excuse her behavior tonight." "You have always been the strong one, Ethan." My mother continued shifting tactics. "Jessica is more sensitive and needs extra support. Family should come first." "Family should support each other," I agreed, "which is why I invited you both to share in my achievement. Instead, Jessica deliberately ruined the evening, and you enabled her." A long silence followed before my mother spoke again, her voice hardening. "Your success is making your sister feel worthless. Is that what you want?" "My success has nothing to do with Jessica," I replied. "Her feelings about my career are her responsibility, not mine." "After all we have done for you," my mother said, her voice trembling with what sounded like practiced emotion. "This is how you repay us, by refusing to apologize to your sister when she is clearly hurting." The familiar guilt tactic washed over me, but for perhaps the first time in my life, it found no purchase. Years of similar manipulations had finally built up an immunity. I will not apologize for succeeding, Mom. Nor will I apologize for expecting basic respect at a professional event I invited you to as guests. "So that is it," she challenged. "Your fancy job means more to you than your family." "That is not what this is about, and I think you know that," I said quietly. "This is about boundaries and mutual respect. Jessica crossed a line tonight, and you supported her in doing so." "Boundaries," she repeated, as if the word was foreign. "We are family, Ethan. There are no boundaries in family." That statement, more than anything else she had said, crystallized the fundamental problem. In their view, being family entitled them to unlimited access to my resources, endless forgiveness for bad behavior, and complete disregard for my feelings or accomplishments. "I need some space," I said finally. "We can talk again when everyone has calmed down." "If you hang up without agreeing to apologize to your sister, you are choosing your career over your family," my mother warned. I ended the call without responding to the ultimatum. Amanda, who had been sitting quietly beside me throughout the conversation, wrapped her arms around me as I set the phone down. "You did the right thing," she assured me. Their expectations are completely unreasonable. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay awake replaying not just the events of the evening, but years of similar incidents on a smaller scale. The pattern was always the same. Jessica behaved badly, my mother enabled and defended her, and I was expected to forgive and forget without any acknowledgement of the harm done. Around 3 in the morning, as Amanda slept peacefully beside me, I reached a clarity that had eluded me for years. This cycle would never end unless I took decisive action to break it. With that realization came not despair, but a strange sense of peace and resolve. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The Sunday morning after the disastrous party dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to my emotional state. Amanda and I sat at our kitchen table, steaming coffee mugs between us, as I outlined the decisions I had made during my sleepless night. I need to establish clear boundaries, I explained. Not just temporarily, but permanently. Amanda nodded supportively. What are you thinking? First, I am canceling the monthly family dinners I have been financing, I said, referring to the tradition I had established after my father's death. Twice a month I paid for expensive meals at my mother's favorite restaurant, ostensibly to check in on her well-being, but in reality, to ease my own guilt about our strained relationship. Second, I am withdrawing financial support for Jessica's endless string of business opportunities, I continued. Over the past 3 years, I had funded 5 different ventures from the artisanal soap company to a short-lived photography studio, a handmade jewelry line, an attempt at becoming a social media influencer, and most recently, a vague plan to open an arts cafe with zero business planning. Are you sure? Amanda asked, not challenging the decision, but ensuring I had considered the implications. They have come to depend on that money? That is exactly the problem, I replied. I have been enabling their behavior just as much as Mom enables Jessica's. The financial dependency has given them leverage to keep me trapped in their dysfunction. The third step was more symbolic, but equally important, removing myself from the family group chat that had become a constant source of stress. The chat primarily consisted of Jessica sharing grievances about her life, my mother offering sympathy, and suggesting Jessica ask me for help and indirect guilt trips when I failed to immediately offer financial solutions. Finally, I drafted a carefully worded email to my mother, explaining my need for space and outlining the conditions for future contact acknowledgement of inappropriate behavior, a genuine apology, and a commitment to respecting my boundaries. Going forward, I showed the draft to Amanda, who suggested a few modifications to make it firm but not unnecessarily harsh. I know this will not be well received, I said after sending the email. They will see it as an attack rather than a boundary. Amanda squeezed my hand. Their reaction is not your responsibility. You have the right to protect your mental health and your career. The backlash began almost immediately. Within an hour of sending the email, Jessica called 6 times in succession. When I did not answer, she sent a barrage of text messages alternating between rage and tearful manipulation. How dare you cut me off financially without warning? I thought you cared about me, but clearly money means more to you than family. What am I supposed to do about rent now? Do you want me to be homeless? I cannot believe you are punishing me just for being honest about my feelings. I silenced notifications from her number, knowing that engaging would only prolong the drama. My mother's response was more strategic. Rather than direct confrontation, she sent a lengthy email detailing all the sacrifices she had made for me throughout my childhood, followed by a list of Jessica's positive qualities and struggles. The message concluded with, "When you are ready to be a proper son and brother again, we will be waiting." The emotional manipulation that had controlled me for years now seemed transparent and almost predictable. I archived the email without replying. Monday morning brought fresh anxiety as I prepared to face my colleagues after Friday's scene. Amanda sensed my concern as I adjusted my tie in the mirror. "Remember what you told me about Richard Thompson when you first started working for him?" she asked. I met her eyes in the reflection, that he values transparency and direct communication above all else. She nodded. So be transparent. Address what happened before anyone else brings it up. Own the situation without apologizing for your family's behavior. Her advice proved sound. When I arrived at the office, I requested a brief meeting with Richard. In his office, I thanked him for his support during the difficult situation and assured him that I had taken steps to ensure nothing similar would disrupt company events in the future. Richard leaned back in his chair, studying me thoughtfully. "Ethan, I have been in business for 27 years. In that time, I have seen executives deal with divorces during board meetings, had consultants suffer panic attacks during client presentations, and once witnessed our former CFO faint during the annual financial review. Your sister's behavior, while unfortunate, hardly registers on my scale of professional crises." His matter-of-fact attitude lifted a weight from my shoulders. "Thank you for understanding. More importantly," he continued, "your handling of the situation demonstrated exactly why you were selected for the senior project manager role. You remained calm, under pressure, minimized disruption, and maintained professionalism throughout. If anything, the incident confirmed our decision." Throughout the day, colleagues approached with similar support. Marcus, my longtime mentor, shared stories of his own family drama at professional events. Jennifer from marketing made a point of mentioning how impressed the Novatech clients had been with my composure. By lunchtime, it became clear that rather than damaging my professional reputation, the incident had possibly enhanced it by showcasing my ability to manage difficult situations with grace. The personal front, however, continued to be challenging. Jessica's furious messages about the canceled financial support escalated, eventually shifting to legal threats about promised funds and verbal contracts. I forwarded these to my attorney, who assured me such claims had no legal merit. My mother alternated between long guilt-inducing voicemails and brief cutting text messages about me breaking the family and abandoning them when they needed me most. Each attempt at emotional manipulation only strengthened my resolve to maintain the boundaries I had established. 3 weeks after the party incident, Jessica showed up unannounced at my office building. Security called up to confirm whether I would see her, and I declined, asking them to escort her from the premises if necessary. This led to another round of angry messages about my cowardice and betrayal. The most difficult aspect of enforcing these new boundaries was managing my own guilt and ingrained sense of responsibility for their well-being. Years of conditioning had programmed me to believe that their happiness was my obligation. Amanda helped immensely during these moments of doubt, reminding me that healthy relationships involve mutual respect and support, not one-sided giving and constant criticism. 6 months passed with minimal contact. I occasionally received updates through mutual acquaintances. Jessica had moved to a smaller apartment, taken a part-time job at a coffee shop, her first regular employment in years, and was dating someone new. My mother had joined a church group that provided her with social connection she had previously sought exclusively from me. The Novatech project launched successfully under my leadership, further cementing my position at Armstrong Technologies. Without the constant drain of family drama and financial obligations, I found myself more creative and focused at work. My relationship with Amanda deepened, and we began discussing long-term plans, including marriage. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon 7 months after the party incident, I received an email from my mother with the subject line, "Reaching Out." The message was brief and surprisingly free of obvious manipulation. "Ethan, I hope this message finds you well. Jessica is getting married in October and would like you to attend the wedding. I know there has been distance between us, but perhaps this could be an opportunity to reconnect. We miss having you in our lives. Mom." Reading between the lines, I suspected Jessica's engagement had triggered this reconciliation attempt. Weddings are expensive, and I represented a potential funding source that had been cut off. Still, the message lacked the overt guilt tactics and accusations of previous communications, suggesting at least some evolution in approach, if not genuine change. After discussing it with Amanda, I replied with a cautious acknowledgement, reiterating my conditions for re-establishing contact, but expressing openness to gradual reconciliation if my boundaries were respected. The response was telling. My mother replied with general pleasantries, but avoided addressing the boundary issue directly, while Jessica sent a wedding invitation with a handwritten note mentioning their limited budget and how family usually contributes to such important life events. Some patterns, it seemed, were deeply ingrained and resistant to change. Nevertheless, I maintained my position, offering congratulations and a modest gift, but declining to fund the wedding. To my surprise, this firm boundary was met with disappointed acceptance rather than the explosive reaction I had anticipated, suggesting some small progress. As I reflect on the journey from that disastrous promotion party to my current state of improved mental health and professional success, I recognize that the explosion at Riverside Lounge painful, as it was ultimately forced a necessary recalibration of my family relationships. By refusing to continue enabling toxic patterns and establishing clear, consistent boundaries, I created space for genuine growth, both for myself and potentially for my family as well. The peace I have found in surrounding myself with genuinely supportive people like Amanda Richard and my colleagues at Armstrong has been transformative. I no longer measure my worth through my family's approval or validation, instead finding confidence in my own accomplishments and the authentic connections I have built. True family, I have learned, should celebrate your successes rather than try to diminish them. They should lift you up rather than tear you down. And sometimes, the family you choose through friendship and mutual respect provides more authentic support than the family you are born into. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who could not celebrate your success? Drop a comment below, sharing your experience and how you handled it. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to support more content about navigating complex family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with similar challenges in their own life. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, establishing healthy boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for your well-being, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved.